how to maintain your health and well-being, manage your time, things like that. So there will be less of me talking today and more of your classmates sharing how to go about being successful as a student. So Marky, do you want to hit the next slide?
Absolutely. Vinika, is this the one you need?
You know what? For me, Marky, it actually just shows the title slide.
Oh. Let's fix that.
Yeah, for me too. I can't see the slide that you want.
Let me reshare, friends. I apologize.
Technical glitches are all part of the process,
yes.
right? So.
Yes, they are. All right, give me one moment to get this corrected, friends.
While we wait for Marky to do that, can everyone drop in the chat, what's your favorite chocolate bar? Crunch, hands down. I love that. Crunch bars are also my my favorite chocolate bar. But great choices all around. Toblerone, great. Perfect, Marky, thank you. So just can everyone see this now? Can I just get a quick thumbs up from some of the faces I can see? Perfect. Okay, so just to recap really quickly from last week. So last week we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this is the idea that in order to reach your full potential, right? So if you think of yourself as a student, you know, doing assignments, getting good grades, graduating, getting a job, an internship, whatever it is, in order to do that, you need to meet some basic needs successively. And without doing that, you can't get to the point where you're engaging your brain and producing this content. So Maslow called that top piece self-actualization. We're thinking of that in an educational sphere as, you know, meeting all your requirements as a student, doing really well in school, and graduating. So at the bottom are the physiological needs. You can think of all of those things related to your body, right? Then as we move up, you know, maintaining your safety and security, and building your relationships, and then from that point forward, then you can go forth and accomplish the things that you need to do as a student. So that's a quick recap of what we talked about last week. Marky, you can hit next. So today, as I mentioned right when we started, the focus is less on that theory and it's more about practices, right? So we're going to talk about, and not me, people far more interesting than me, your classmates are going to talk about how they manage their time, how they manage their well-being, and share some best practices for you as first-year students, okay? So today, I have an opening guiding question for you. Then we're going to meet briefly the experts, the first-year mentors who have volunteered to speak to you about time management, stress and anxiety, and procrastination. And then I'm going to pass the torch back to Marky, and she'll talk about what's coming up next. Okay, so here's the guiding question. Just keep this in your brains, right? Because this is to some degree what your mentors today will talk about. So what tools do you use to manage all of your responsibilities? So think of your life right now, your scope as a student, right? You have academic responsibilities. You might be involved in extracurricular activities. You might have family responsibilities, work, social, right? All those things. So think about how you keep track of those things. How do you manage them? You don't need to mention anything in the chat. Just keep that in mind as we hear from your mentors, all right? Next slide. Thank you, Marky. So now I know we have an awesome panel of experts here today, Jack, Katya, and Lucy. I am going to ask you all one by one, we'll start with Jack, to introduce yourself. And so what I want you to share with the first year students today is your class year, your major, and if you are a type of cheese, what type of cheese would best represent your personality? All right, so Jack, you're up.
All right. So you might have met me before when I spoke on some of the other meetings, but I'm Jack. I'm a senior now, so my 4th year. I'm a computer engineering major. And the type of cheese, probably, I mean, I can go pretty ironic and just say pepper jack, makes it easy. But I also really enjoy that type of cheese. It's got a little kick to it, so that's pretty nice.
Thank you, Jack. I wish I had a cheese that had my name in it. Katya, you're up.
Hey everyone, my name is Katya. I'm a 4th year mechanical and aerospace engineering student, and my favorite kind of cheese is brie. And so the way I thought to spin it is that brie kind of goes with everything, even the most like unusual foods. And I feel like that fits my personality. I kind of do a lot of very different things, and my personality fits with many different communities.
Awesome. Thanks, Katya. How about you, Lucy?
Hi, I'm Lucy. Also, I hope the background noise isn't too bad. I hope you guys can hear me. But I'm a 2nd year architectural engineering student, and I would say probably goat cheese, but with honey.
Love it. That's great. So that's sweet and savory together. Thank you all for introducing yourself. So now the way this will work is I have 3 sets of questions. And because of our time constraints, I've asked 2 of the panel members here to speak on each question. Okay, so Marky, if you'd hit the next slide. So I'm going to pose this first set of questions about time management strategies to Jack and Katya. Okay, so the questions for the panel are: how do you as students manage your time? What tools do you use? And do you have any advice for the 1st year students as they think about time management? Jack, do you want to start?
Sure, I can go ahead. So I use a couple different tools. So for me, I use Google Calendar as my kind of keeping track of when things are. So that's kind of just keeping track of events, classes, extracurricular activities and whatnot. So that's the biggest tool I use for that. And then I also use, I try to use Slack most often for like keeping track of my conversations and like ways that I'm talking with people. I try to keep it all on Slack. Sometimes I use Messenger as well to keep track of like group chats and stuff like that. And then I kid you not, like for like keeping track of assignments, I literally have a piece of paper that I put on my desk that I write down my assignments, and then I cross them out when I'm done with them. So it's like it's right here. I can always see it. It always reminds me of the assignments I have to do every week. So that's something I use as well. Katya, you can go ahead and then we can say recommendations kind of after you want to go.
So I'm pretty much very similar to Jack. The only thing I would add on to that suggestion is I would align it with the syllabus at the beginning of each semester. So usually your teachers will tell you when your exams or homework assignments are in the future. And then with virtual, now they'll also tell you sometimes which ones are live and which ones are recorded if you have a mix of that. And so I put that on my calendar. I'll block out like a red event when it's an exam. So when I look at my calendar weeks in advance, I know mentally when I need to start preparing for those types of things.
And Marky, could you hit the next slide really quick? So Katya was kind enough to share a screenshot of her calendar. So Katya, can you walk us through this really quick?
Okay, so I was actually thinking of answering the next question with this, but I can totally jump into it. So first off, I just want you guys to know that this might look like a lot, but it's actually not when you break it down, and that's what I wanted to go around today. So Google Calendar is a really, really cool tool, but the reason why I think it's like the best thing ever is because it helps you manage not just your work commitments, but even things outside of that as well. So I used my summer as an example. Over the summer, I was living in Hawaii, which you guys might know is a 5-hour time difference. And I was working a full-time internship and I had extracurricular. So at first I felt really overwhelmed. I was like, holy moly, how am I gonna wake up at 3 in the morning and start my day and all that kind of stuff and make sure I manage my time. And so what I decided to do was I decided to set boundaries and use my Google Calendar to make sure I followed those boundaries. So if you divide 40 hours per 7 days of the week, which means I did tend to work on the weekends a little because it was COVID. I was home anyway. That's around 5.5 hours of internship per day. So I would let myself block out 5.5 hours of internship every day. And then I would allow myself to block the rest with other things. So if I knew I wanted to be done by 6 o'clock Hawaii time, which is 11 p.m. Chicago time, I made sure that I only allowed for 4 hours of extracurricular every day. And so what I would do is I would plan things out. And if you see at the top, it says this big red thing that says no more work. That's me telling myself to put my mental health first, to put my passions for family time and that kind of stuff, and not schedule anything else. So I keep my sanity along with everything else I had to do. So I know that was a long explanation, but that was what I was hoping you'd get out of seeing this example.
Thank you. And just before, I know Jack had a best practice to share, but before that, I want to point out a couple things. So Katja, what I really like about what you shared is that you block your time, right? So you're thinking about a set amount of time that you use for different things. And you can nod and let me know, give me a thumbs up if this is right or thumbs down if it's wrong. Sometimes things don't fit neatly in the blocks, right? Right? Like sometimes you might have to adjust your calendar, but having a framework like this to start with can be really helpful. And I also really like that you're using this tool to manage time zones, because now that we have so many students all over the place virtually, it seems like that's a really, proactive step you can take to make sure you're doing everything on time. Thank you. Jack, I know you mentioned you had a best practice to share.
Yeah, just suggestions as a whole. I think it kind of goes off of what Katya was sharing about like being aware of your mental health and being aware of times in which you're not productive. I use like somewhat of a sleeping app to help me know like when my most productive hours are going to be. And so in some regards, I try to schedule things during those hours. And then if things come up and I need to do other things and I'm not feeling well, I think it's also knowing when to prioritize what events and like, oh, I can miss this meeting, this schedule, because like my mental health is more important, like of missing a couple things. And then as well, taking some time. I know she has like a ridiculously full schedule, but it's also taking maybe like 12 hours every week or 24 if you have the time to not do anything, to take a break. And it's really having those break times as well. Just for yourself, and you could schedule it in there and just say like nothing, and then have like just like be with friends or something if you really want to put it in your schedule as well.
Thank you so much, Jack and Katja. This was really helpful for me as well. So Katja, I'm going to take notes on your calendar too and take some of these practices for myself. Marky, would you hit the next slide? So then the next the next topic is stress and anxiety management. So I'm going to ask Katja and Lucy to respond to this. So, and I'm going to tie in something Jack mentioned with the previous question. So the question for Katja and Lucy is, how do you manage your stress and anxiety? And Jack mentioned in his previous response that he prioritizes and he practices, actively prioritizing things that are important for him, whatever that might be in a given week. So how do you prioritize, in that sense, managing your stress and anxiety?
Do you mind if I jump in just to follow on from that screenshot? So basically the reason why I wanted to include a visual representation is because that's how I am. I need to see things laid out in order for me to feel less stressed out about all the things that I need to do. And so one thing that I've really noticed that helps with school and extracurricular is sometimes you're not going to get everything done right away. And yeah, it's going to be in the back of your head. For me, if I know that I have this 1 hour randomly on this Wednesday that I'm going to do it, I at least don't have to think about when I'm going to do it, how I'm going to do it. And at least it frees up at least some mental space. So you don't have to think about something that you don't have time to do for in that moment. So that's kind of the point I was trying to get at, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Katja.
I think for me, like the way that I prioritized my stress and anxiety in high school was very different than the way that I am learning I have to prioritize and manage my stress and anxiety in college. So I think something that's really important as you transition to college and you're in a completely new environment is just being very reflective on what's working and what works for you. So for me, one of the things that I like to do is I like to journal, and that really helps me just like get everything like off my chest. And then another thing is like sometimes it's really hard for me to just like be okay with not doing anything. And it's also like even if like I do like the calendar thing too, but then I always need more time, and then I like usually like I have a tendency to push my academics into like my mental health time. So making sure that you set really strong boundaries, and even like if you need like your friends, like having your friends hold you accountable to like make sure that you do take time for yourself. But yeah, I would say like just having time, like Jack mentioned, where don't have to do anything, even if it's just like 30 minutes in a day, can really help you, at least for me, like get my mind off of everything and just help me de-stress.
Thank you, Lucy. And so question for both of you, and Jack, you can jump in on this too. What do you do to zone out? You know, when you want to shut off the world, how do you do that?
I think for me, well, one of the things that I do is I listen to music, and I listen to music a lot, which I have Bluetooth hearing aids, so it makes that very convenient. But like I have a playlist of like very like soothing songs that I'll like listen to, and the way that I like zone out is I like to like isolate myself. So because I live with a roommate and we like share a bedroom, we've developed like pretty good communication, so that when either of us like need time alone, like neither of us feel like bad about asking. And then I usually just like sit in my room and like listen to music and either like do some form of art or just like lay in my bed and like basically just think for as long as I need.
Thank you. Jack or Katja?
I'll go ahead. So for me, it's kind of about trying to figure out the time in which I need to spend with other people. So I live in a fraternity house, so we have like 21 guys in our house, so it's a lot. But it's spending time in my own room. I have a hammock that I set up over here, which is pretty neat. So that's kind of the space I go to relax. I think it's all about, like Lucy was mentioning, it's kind of about having a set space for things. So you have a space where you're working, maybe a space where you watch TV to get away. That's what I do to get away. I kind of watch TV and kind of do some mind-numbing activities. And then the hammock is my relaxation place. So that's the ways that I set that apart in my brain.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. And how about you, Katja?
Yeah, very similar to Jack and Lucy. At the beginning of the year, I actually like tried to do that whole resolution thing. And what happened was while I tried to build that resolution list, I ended up just kind of making a list of things that I always want to do but never have time for. And so what I try to do now is I try to make those more of a priority. For me, music is a huge part of my life. So I make a rule to myself that I'm going to take out my ukulele, which is a ukulele, if you guys don't know what that is. But I take it out of my closet and I force myself to make time and not feel guilty about taking time away to just play it twice a month and just not have any plans that night. So making lists of like things that you're passionate about and then having those visually in front of you sometimes help you remember that those are things you care about and those are things that you need to kind of unwind when other things are crazy.
Awesome, thank you. So, you know, what I'm hearing from this is it's really important to compartmentalize, right? And so, you know, several of you mentioned having different places for different things, which is particularly important now, right? Because we might be at home, you know, you might have limited of the virtual environment that we're in, and also to find time where you're just shutting your brain off, whether that's listening to music, playing music, working out, whatever it is, to just find that time to separate yourself from some of your commitments and responsibilities. Marky, could you hit next on the slide? Awesome. So this is a topic near and dear to my heart. I'm going to ask, who do we have for this one? I think we had Lucy and Jack responding to this. And if we have time, Katja, please jump in as well. So this is about procrastination. So can everyone just drop in the chat really quickly, just say me, if you consider yourself a procrastinator. All right, that was super quick. Seems like pretty much everyone considers themselves a procrastinator. It goes without saying, as a college student, you have a lot of work to do, right? And so procrastination can be, if you let it go, unchecked, detrimental to your success as a student. So the question for Lucy and Jack is, how do you challenge this impulse to procrastinate when it comes up?
You want me to go ahead, Lucy? No? Okay, I'll just go ahead. So I think for me, the biggest thing, so I'm definitely a procrastinator in some places, I think, but maybe not others. I think it's really about your passions and things that you really enjoy doing. So like, of course, if I have 2 different assignments or 2 different things that I'm going to do, and then one of them I really like doing and the other one I don't, I'm going to do the one I really like doing first sometimes, most of the time. And so I think it's really about what Katja mentioned in the compartmentalizing thing as well. It's like you put that in a space that you're going to do it. So you're not always thinking about it. You're not always stressing about it, because that's what's going to get you the most. If you're like, I don't know when I'm going to do this, and then you never do it. Instead, you're like, okay, I don't know when I'm going to do this, and forget. And so that's kind of a way to challenge the impulse of not wanting to do something and pushing it off so long, is making specific time slots for them. And then as well, I know that's something that me and Katja do a lot, is work like with other people on your things that you need to get done that you really don't want to do. So maybe sitting in a space with somebody and working through it with somebody else that can push you.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that, like making sure that, like, sometimes you have to like prioritize things that you might not want to prioritize. Like Jack was saying, how like if there's something that you're more passionate about, you're more likely to do that, but that thing that you're more passionate about could be the thing that's due later. And as hard as it is to like not do that thing first because it excites you, sometimes that can help with like procrastination, because usually like that's part of my problem with procrastination, is like I'll save the things that I don't want to do until the very end, and then I'll have like one like day to do it. And something that helps me is like, if your assignments allow like trying to get things done the day before, so like I'll like write in my planner, like if something is due on Wednesday, I'll like say it's due on Tuesday, so that I kind of give myself that buffer, and that way I'm not like going into my sleep schedule or like my like mental health time to like do an assignment very last minute. And then another thing too is like, for me, like I mentioned earlier, I tend to like go over the amount of time I plan for an assignment, and then sometimes that kind of like discourages me. So what I like to do is I think it's called like the Pomodoro method, but it's basically you like work for 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break, and that's like one section. And then after 4 of those, you get like a longer break, and that just helps me like stay focused. So that way I can like get more work done in like the same amount of time, because I'm like giving myself little breaks in between.
Awesome. Thank you, Lucy. And Katja, I'm so sorry. We're actually right at the time that we need to pass the torch to Marky for some announcements. But I just want to sum up really quickly what I'm hearing. So, it sounds like in terms of procrastination, there's always going to be things that aren't fun, that you not that school isn't fun, but assignments and things that you don't like as much. You don't want to do them right away. So some of the strategies that we heard shared just now are, again, back to time management, right? Blocking off time when you know that you are going to work on something, and then forgetting about it, right? So it doesn't have to weigh on your mind. And then Lucy mentioned doing those things first, right? Getting them out of the way. And then anticipating that perhaps because it's something you don't necessarily want to do, it might take you more time than you thought, right? So just kind of thinking about all those things and it goes back to time management. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys having me join you for this seminar. And now I'm going to pass the torch back to Marky.
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to give huge kudos to Vinika and our panelists for helping out the last couple of weeks. It is so much appreciated. And I actually have to say that I have tried the Pomodoro method that Lucy mentioned, where essentially you work for a few minutes, you get a break, you work for a few minutes, you get a break, and then you get a longer break. And I will say that if you've never Googled it or looked it up, it's really effective. So I highly recommend trying it if you have trouble with procrastination. All of this was just amazing advice. And especially going into midterms next week, these are all things that I think, you know, we can all be taking into account as we move forward. So in terms of announcements, friends, just keep in mind that this week your small groups are meeting, so please remember to take that into account when you're planning your calendar for the week. Now, however, next week though, I know that there are a lot of midterms going on in many of your classes, so we are actually not going to have our Tuesday first year seminar next week, and we are also not doing small groups next week. So next week is an off week for first year experience. Please use the extra time, of course, to do whatever you need to do. I know midterms can be a stressful time, and if you need support, don't hesitate to reach out to your mentors or to myself. The week of October 19th, that's when the first year seminar and small groups will resume. We also have a first year experience supplemental webinar series that I've been talking about. The dates will be on the next slide as well. So remember that the next one that's coming up is actually tomorrow. It's the Academic Resource Center. Friends, I highly recommend that you tune in for this one. It's going to be at 3 o'clock. So please, please, please tune in to learn what the Academic Resource Center can do for you. I highly recommend paying them a visit this week to get ready for midterms. They always say that it's really better to go the week before than to just try to go the week of midterms or finals. And then in addition, don't forget that we've got campus life and student activities coming up as a webinar on Wednesday, October 14th at 12:40, and then study abroad coming up in November. So these are optional, and you are welcome to log into them if you are interested. Also, friends, in terms of a reflection journal prompt, I am not providing one this week. I just want everybody to focus on getting ready for midterms, so don't worry about a reflection journal this week. And then next time, our next first year seminar is actually not going to be until Tuesday, October 20th from 12:50 to 1:20. And we are actually going to be bringing in some of the academic coaches who work with the general learning strategies classes to guest lecture. And we're going to be beginning a unit about a metacognitive approach to academics. So this is really going to be talking about understanding yourself as a learner, understanding what works for you and what doesn't, understanding how to work with faculty that you jive with really well, and understanding how to work with faculty that maybe you don't jive with really, really well. So we're going to cover all of those topics that just kind of make learning in a college environment difficult sometimes, and how to mitigate those challenges. And of course, we're going to have some advice for academic success from your peers, as we've done in every unit. So next time we meet, it will be October 20th from 12:50 to 1:20. And then just remember that you do have your small group this week as planned. And don't forget, friends, if you need anything at all, this is my email address, mrhodes1@iit.edu. So you are more than welcome to email me if you have any concerns. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. Don't forget to go to small group this week. Next week is an off week, and then we will see you again back here on October 20th as we start our unit about academia. So have a great rest of your day, friends, and we will see you soon.